Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. As you can see, I've started working on my E30. I'm going through and doing a full brake system rebuild. It's going to be everything is new in the car except for the ABS unit and the brake booster. Everything else will be new. New lines, new pads, new rotors, new calipers. Hopefully with all of that done, we'll have a much better braking system coming into the autocross race season. For this video and the next couple coming up, I'm just going to work through the system and replace the parts as I go through. So I'm going to start with the front of the car. As you can see here, I do have it up in the air and started to tear it apart, but I'll go through the pads, the rotors, and the calipers for the front, putting in new stainless steel lines for the front. From there, I'll also be replacing the master cylinder with a unit from I think an E32, so it'll be a bit of an upgrade due to the size. And after having a couple of the hard lines running to the rear of the car blow out due to rust issues, I'm going to go through and bend and flare an entirely new set of hard lines for the car to hopefully not have that issue in the future. Then when I get to the rear, obviously pads, rotors, and calipers back there as well. I have new parking brake hardware, and hopefully when I get back there, it's not going to be too rusty and too much of an issue trying to get the hard lines up and over the components in the rear. Yep, so with that, this video will be handling the front, and hopefully coming out in the next couple videos, I'll have the rest of the braking system being replaced. So let's dig into it. Okay, so we're backtracking a little bit here and taking off the wheels. I still have the stock lug bolts here, but hopefully coming up in the near future, I'll be installing something that should make this a little bit easier to take on and off the wheels. So stay tuned for that. But for now, it's just me skating around the garage with the jack and jack stands. Maybe way down in the future, we'll get something like a lift. Probably not in this garage, but hopefully someday. I'm so thankful for PB Blaster. Wasn't really sure what I needed to loosen up here. I did change these brakes a handful of years ago, but just to be safe, I was spraying everything down. Some of my motivation for running new lines was that I really expected to kind of destroy some of the connections here. In preparation of that, I wanted to go through and make sure that I had all of the new lines so that there would be no surprises and no holdups actually in replacing everything. Found that turning the wheel a little bit to expose some of the bolts in the back made it a lot easier, one, to access, and then also to start taking everything apart. It is a fairly simplified system. I do struggle a little bit getting this unhooked. Just, you know, a little piece of the caliper hooks into the bottom of the bracket, so you just have to work it a little bit. And as I take that out, I notice, I think it's a bunch of rust, maybe from the piston that just built up and deteriorated. I don't think it's crud getting in there, but either way, it looks terrible. Didn't want to rebuild the calipers just because I wasn't sure what kind of condition that they would be in, how much junk might be in it, and really the remanufactured units that I bought were relatively cheap, so I figured have something new and shiny coming in. So from when I changed these brakes, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, the set screws were already stripped, so we drilled them out. And with the calipers and these soft lines here, I can't really guarantee I'm doing any of this in the recommended order. You know, I'm just working through the bolts, taking everything off as I get through it. But really, I wanted to go through and make sure everything was broken loose before I took it off, so I had some leverage still left on it. And these were some of the nuts that were pretty chewed up, so I'm glad that I am replacing this with new parts. And my brake fluid definitely wasn't looking good. Honestly, I was surprised that more didn't drip out,
but I caught what I could. Luckily, I put some cardboard underneath of the car to catch any extra drips or spills, and I had a lot of those. With the rotor out of the way, you can see kind of the leftover of the set screw in the hub. I gave it a few tries trying to extract it out, but in the end I couldn't successfully get it, and then I was starting to really chew up the hub, trying to drill this out fully. So we're going to leave it for now, and maybe down the road try to replace the hub. And much to my displeasure, once the wheel and everything's out and I can really get a good look into the fender well, you can see a good bit of rust building up. So I did have one issue with the parts that I ordered. You can see here, this is the proper new caliper, and the size of the width of it. And then the driver's side one that I received here is much smaller. So I think this was made for like an earlier 4-cylinder car and not the M20s or I think the later M42s. So I had all of the clips taking the parts off on the driver's side, but that was the side that the caliper was bad. So instead of waiting for those new parts to come in, I went over to the other side, and this is going to be the install is going to be on the passenger side with the properly sized caliper that I received. Scrub this down a little bit, make sure it's nice and clean and there's no kind of buildup of junk. And yes, the set screw was messed up on this side as well. But I will say that there was less rust in this fender well, which was, I guess, one positive of switching to this side. So I just use my lug bolts to kind of hold this in there while I don't have a set screw. It doesn't hold it in perfectly, but it definitely did the job until I could get the bracket and the caliper on. Taking everything off, I just went for the bolts that were in front of me, but I think putting everything back together, the order is going to matter just a little bit more. Check your manual, but I think it was 80 foot-pounds to torque these down. Forgot to lock the steering, so it started to move a little bit on me. Had to run around, make sure the key was out of the ignition, lock the steering back in place, so as I put some pressure on it, it stopped moving. And here we go, nice new shiny parts. This is what it's all about. Wanted to make sure that the stainless steel lines go in first. I did get these from Race German, so I have I guess a referral link if you want to go ahead and buy a set of these from Race German. That link should be down in the description. We'll also say that I guess the build of the caliper switched. I know there's typically two styles offered on the E30, so it was just interesting that the remanufactured ones that I got were the different style. Gone through and done this a couple times with it off the car, now on the car, just with a little bit of brake clean, making sure that I'm wiping down the rotors to make sure that whatever they put on it is cleaned off and it's ready to go. Got a little bit of this goo to put on the back of my brake pad. This is going to be the brake pad that sits, I guess, on the inside of the rotor that's against the piston. I think I only need it for the one against the piston, so here we go. And the other brake pad just falls right into place. Didn't have, obviously, because these are new calipers, I didn't have to compress the piston back in, and everything just, at least for this side on the correctly sized caliper, everything just kind of goes back together nice and tight. This one was a little bit harder to torque down because you have to hold there's like an inner bolt that you have to stop from spinning, and these were only to about 25 foot-pounds, so a lot less torque than the larger caliper bolts. And with that, normally you would go ahead and lock your stainless steel line up to the hard lines that's coming out of the engine bay. But I guess at this point I didn't have those lines made yet, so I just kind of will push this up and into the place where it should be, and then once I get the hard lines run in a later video, I'll go ahead and connect that onto my stainless steel lines here. It's always a nice kind of comparison to see all of these nice new shiny parts come in with all of the older dingy parts. Surprisingly, like you can see the Ireland Engineering sway bar, that's been in there for probably 9 years. It still holds some of its nice blue color. The lower control arms are only a handful of years old, but you know they came black and they quickly picked up road grime and engine dirt. So they don't really look that nice anymore, but it is good to have some shiny parts in there for just a little bit until they get dirty as well. And there you have it, finished and installed in the car, minus that set screw that can't use right now. But hopefully I saved them. Maybe down the road we'll get a new hub and be able to get those set screws in. I'm not worried about not having it. You know, I ran the car for 5 years without one, and it's not like the rotor's going to move once the wheel's on. So there we have it, finished video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to see more of this brake overhaul job.